Um, O Lord, take my love and let it flow in fullness of devotion to thee. O Lord, take my hands and let them work incessantly for thee. O Lord, take my soul and let it be nourished in one with thee. O Lord, take my mind and thoughts and let them be in tune with thee. O Lord, take my everything and let me be an instrument to work for thee. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
So, thank you everyone for
Uh,
joining. I know this is a smaller group, but just want to make sure we got this done at some point rather than waiting for that optimal moment where we have as many people as possible. So real quick, I know there are just a few people on this call, but we will have a recording that will be shared with the larger group. And there also are a couple of people who've said that they will be at SPN for Akanda Budget specifically. Eric, I know you had that question, or you had posed that question
Yeah,
during
yeah.
the previous meeting. So we'll definitely get a account of who is there for which time slots, and then we'll put together a schedule. So there are two things I wanted to cover today. One was the signal path for the video streams, and then the other was just running through the audio interface. That is the software that we use for mixing right now, and well, it'll be video signal path as well as the audio signal path. But let me just start us off. So, cool. Just want to show the cursor a little bit more clearly. So
Hmm.
we already have this existing camera right here in the middle that gives us this nice little wide shot. And I recall we had done, hey Karthik, Sarah, we had done a camera over in this corner from the back of the ladies' side in segment one of the hall, and trying to get that close-up shot of the presenter whenever they are up at the podium. This is a good angle in that we're getting almost like a 45-degree angle profile shot, but the problem is what's behind, and the background is either an exit sign or the door to the elevator, and so this is would not be our better choices. Rather, having a close up from this angle, and it's rather close, but having a close up from this angle does make it easier. So because of the distance, we have to be sure of the exact lens that we're using. We can't. We don't want to have an unflattering version of the close up. And of course, this center camera can both do primary as wide shot and secondary as a mid shot for the person who's at the podium on either the men's side or the ladies' side. And of course, if once we have three cameras, then we would have cameras at both podiums, and then depending on who's speaking, we would be able to angle the camera this way and have three different shots if needed. For the purpose of Akanda Bhajans, if we were to have, so Eric, I believe you mentioned that there was going to be a second camera, and then I believe we usually are able to ask Praveen if he can bring his for the duration of Akanda Bhajans, and then we wouldn't be utilizing the usual third camera, which is actual physical photography camera rather than a video
Hmm.
camera.
Hmm.
So that would give us three different angles, the wide shot of the altar, and then the semi-wide or the wide shot of the audience, either in the pit area or those who are seated, depending on how full the hall is. At some point, if we do get the PZT cameras, which are the ones that allow us to do remote operations of these cameras, and we get a track, we can put them on that dolly and just have it kind of move slowly but automated, and we would just be able to switch to that shot anytime we needed to, and it would be a great angle of the people who are singing in the pit area without worrying about whether the audience is, or rather the seats are half empty or completely full. So that would be an option for a little bit further down the future. The nice thing with the PZT cameras, of course, is that we can also rotate them around. It's not just they're on the dolly and going back and forth, staring straight down at the audience or the singers in the pit, but they can also rotate around and give us a shot of the altar. And so we can have the camera going back and forth on a slow pan, if you will, of the altar, and that would just make for a different, interesting visual for folks who are streaming. Oh, yeah, folks who are streaming into the program. Any questions on that before I move on?
The PCT or those cameras,
Yes.
they can do 360 turning.
They can. It does require an additional piece, but it is doable for the PCT cameras. Yes.
So even if they were stationary to begin with, right?
Mhm.
And they were in the right spots, they could be 360. Are they every direction 360?
I think
Complete,
it
up and
depends on
downs,
what. Yeah, it depends on what type of add-ons we want to get and which particular model and all those things. But yes,
Okay.
it can be every direction, or maybe every direction, but certain directions it's 275. Like that,
Sure,
that sort of
sure,
limitation.
sure,
But
sure.
we'll get a
Okay.
lot more angles from those cameras.
Okay.
We may need to add additional mechanical components to it just so that it can do a bit more than it originally could. With the dolly on the tracks, that would kind of be running off of battery, but we would be able to just have that motion be on a timer. So even like going from point A to B, it will take like 3 minutes or 5 minutes. And so it'll be that slow pan. And it wouldn't be something so visually exciting like an action movie might be, but it's definitely much better than having a still camera without someone behind the camera, an operator to move it along. So it's a pretty nice option, especially if we need to just focus on a couple of things at once, and we just want to have the cameras switch over to a certain view, just keep things a little interesting and not look like no one's paying attention to the visuals on the stream. Yeah. So with the signal path, we've got your wide angle shot and the close up, and that would go into the video mixer. And this is the Blackmagic design mixer that we have currently. It would go into channels 2 and 3. And the reason for this is because channel 1 needs to be the presenter screen so that it can be, we can put in that picture-in-picture look. And that's dependent on channel 1 being the screen from the laptop that's sharing the slides or any movies. So if, for example, we're not talking about Akana but rather just a regular event where some guest speaker is speaking, we want to be able to show the person speaking as the main image for people who are streaming. But for the people who are in the hall, and that we'll come to that in a bit, but that's for the distributor over here. They will just see the slide deck because they can already see the person in real life. But for the folks who are streaming in, they don't really need to see this huge slide. They want to see the people and the hall probably. So for that purpose, we have channel 1 for the presenter screen, channel 2, and this can of course change at any point, but this is the suggested, having channel 2 be the close-up shot of the individual on stage, and channel 3 be for the wide angle shot. And if at a certain point we have other cameras in there, we can have them go to channels 4. And if we need more than 4 channels, we would need to get upgrade our hardware. Certain So just really quickly, nothing at this point is going to the distributor. So this is the next slide, and the distributor would get the presenter screen as one option and the wide angle shot as the other option. Or it can be this, but what we would do is just split the signal so that one goes to the video mixer, one goes to the distributor. Because the distributor's visual, like when it switches from one shot to another shot, it's kind of jarring. We will also have another Blackmagic Design hardware piece over there. And we currently do have two, well, at least SPN has one, and I have one for my personal use. So I'll just leave that at SPN so that we can have two consistently until at some point we do decide to upgrade our systems. So we'll have channels being split to go to distribution, but we don't need to worry about every camera angle going to the distributor. But for the video mixer, for the live stream, that's the one that requires more cameras. And so we would have most of the data flowing into the video mixer, which in turn sends the video signal over to the laptop, a separate laptop running OBS, which is how we stream. And the audio signal will come from the audio mixer. I've just placed the location of the audio mixer, the distributor, and the video mixer, as well as the laptops arbitrarily. This is not in any way the final positioning of things. Just wanted to make sure there was enough space in the screen with all the text. Any questions before I move on to the audio signal path? Okay. Yes, Eric. Oh, sorry, Mani?
It was me actually. What's the difference between the video mixer and the distributor? I didn't catch that.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure. So the distributor is sending the signal to whatever TV screens are connected in the hall. And it can also go to other TV signals, other TVs that might be connected in some future point. But the goal is to take one HDMI signal or SDI signal and so splitting it means that it can either go to A or it can go to B. What it does is it mirrors it across however many inputs or outputs that we plugged in. So it'll go to A and B and C and D. So if we have 4 TV screens in the main hall, the distributor will send it to all 4. Whereas the video mixer will send signal 1, signal 2, signal 3, or signal 4 as the output. And so the video mixer, at least what we've got here for the live stream, is the BMD device, Blackmagic Design device, and that allows us to do a nice transition as well between the different shots. And it gets sent over to the live stream station over here, and folks who are seeing it are not seeing like jarring shots, cut shots, but rather they will see some nice transition between each shot. And so that's the video part of it. The audio part, of course, comes from the mixer itself, so that we're not relying on one mic catching all the ambient sounds. Yes, Karthik?
So the distributor goes to the televisions and SPN.
Yes.
So typically the live stream and television should be in sync, or it won't be in sync.
No, we want to not be we don't want to be in sync. We want it to be an asynchronous signal. So that is why the distributor we're mirroring the signal from the camera. So this is where it goes to both the video mixer and the distributor, and then for the presenter, this is where it goes to the video mixer and the distributor.
Okay.
But we do want to have an asynchronous signal, because what is being shown in the hall isn't necessarily what's best for folks who are viewing this from home, right? So in the hall during Akanda Buttons, for example, I want to see the lyrics. I don't need to see the person who's singing it up front. I want to see Swami. But for the person who's sitting at home, sure, maybe they have an altar and they're sitting in front of the altar while they listen to this. But maybe they're also on the road or just walking about. They tuned in, and they don't necessarily just want to see the lyrics alone. They want to kind of feel like they're part of the event. And so seeing people moving around, singing, clapping, seeing shots, those widescreen shots of the altar, all of that's going to make them feel a bit more part of the event.
Okay, got it. And the distributor is controlled by somebody, or it's just
So yes, we would ideally we would have an operator for the video mixer that goes to the live stream. Someone can monitor the live stream just to make sure everything is going well. But one person can sit at this booth over here just to make sure the live stream is going well and there's no drops or any other issues on the OBS machine. We have someone sitting at the distributor because we do want to, and it'll also be another Blackmagic design device for now. So again, a video mixer that feeds into the distributor because the distributor only accepts one signal at a time. And so we would piggyback the Blackmagic design onto the distributor. But for the sake of simplicity, I just said distributor. So think of it as two pieces of equipment, but they're functioning for the same purpose. And the distributor would ideally also have someone sitting there watching that. Because the Blackmagic design devices for the live stream and the one that's just before the distributor look exactly alike, it can be a little easy to get confused. And so it might be nicer in the beginning to have two different operators, one for what's in the hall, one for what's being live streamed, just to make sure there isn't any confusion. At some point, as folks start to get more comfortable with it, it might be a simple enough step to just have it be one person. But I think if we have the manpower or the people power, I mean, right now, I believe everything is kind of on the gent side, but there are ladies who are willing to help, definitely young adults. And so if we are able to place it in such a location where ladies can also pitch in, rather than just relying on the gent side for assistance, then we'll do so.
Okay, got it. And so I was going to ask a question. So the during the Akhanda Bhajan, right? So primarily the TV screens will have the bhajan
Lyrics. Correct.
on
in the hall. Yes.
On the hall. Now, does this have a basically the Blackmagic design will also have a picture-in-picture, or that has to be kind of managed by somebody, right? That's what when you say manage, distributors being managed by someone, that's what they need to manage.
Yeah. So for Akhanda Bhajans, because it's just the lyrics, we could just have the presenter screen going in there without having it change at all.
So
if anything, we could
no cameras.
maybe it's something to discuss. So maybe we want to make it a little interesting, like between bhajans. Between center slots, maybe it might behoove us to show an image of the altar. Depending on what TV screens they do set up. So if they set up something in the other rooms, say for example in the dining areas, it might be good to kind of take a copy of the video mixer and send that to those, which would be a separate distribution signal. Okay. So yeah, there are still some things in the works. I don't know what is and is not on the table. Eric would be able to, could you chime in and share if there's something I'm getting wrong?
No, I mean, we just have to be simple about it, I think, at this point, right?
Sure.
That would be the only thing. Is it difficult to do that, Bala?
Nope, very easy. All of this, so it's really just about making sure that our signal paths are very clear, and anyone who comes in to change it understands what's currently happening and what they're changing it to, and lets everyone else know. I think the problem has arisen in the past where someone changes something and others are not informed, and then they're kind of clueless. Or we're finding out as we go, oh, this signal's not working. Why is it not working? Oh, someone unplugged that.
Well, somebody changes it around, right? Every week.
Exactly.
So we have to have a policy if we can You really
Yeah.
can't touch the setup.
Yeah. But for the sake of Akhanda Bhajans, what would be great is, well, all of this is theoretical talk. Of course, showing up at SPN on specific days that we decide that we'll do some hands-on workshops will definitely help. But understanding the theory of it and seeing these lines and squiggles hopefully helps a little bit. So that's this. Karthik, any other questions?
One last question. The distributor is
Yeah.
wireless or wired?
Wired. Pretty much all signals are going to be wired. Only if, I think we just want to make sure that we have the least amount of interference possible. So whenever we get a chance, we're going to wire things in. The only things we're hoping to get wireless at some point in the future, I think, are just the mics, the wireless mics. But that is not something in our immediate future at this point. So just consider everything to be wired.
And these cameras are like fixed, or it's a tripod based, or is it?
So these cameras that are being shown here in this slide are fixed on a tripod. These cameras up here, the PZT cameras, are the ones that are going to be also fixed, but on something that moves. So this is a track, and they can move on these dollies with a battery operated motor. So it doesn't require an operator.
Right?
That's a future state. Yeah. But this would allow us to just have it moving without needing an operator there. Now, even though these are fixed, we could get motorized attachments that allow them to move automatically. We can even get motorized attachments that allow them to focus for us. Or we have an operator who's not right next to the camera, but rather removed from the area and who's able to control everything remotely. So it really depends on which options we go for. Right now, I think we're just sticking with operator behind the camera, but at some point that will probably change because it's a little distracting sometimes, and we noticed this the last year when we had people in different locations. Either they would be so focused on that they weren't paying attention to like cues from the person managing the signals and needed to switch to a different camera angle or anything, or they were so busy with movement and everything that the singers were getting distracted, or anyone else in the hall, and we don't want either of those things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So, jumping ahead. All right. So audio signal path. Now we're going to talk about the audio flow. So everything that comes in, I think pretty much everyone understands. Like, we've got the podium inputs, we've got the folks in the singing in the pit, their inputs, and of course we've got the presenter screen inputs as well. So we're not going to focus too much on the inputs for now. We will talk about the software interface in a few minutes, but for now we'll talk about the outputs. So and I'll show you how to also see these in a bit. But the output, so we have the regular left and right outputs, and that, I think I misnamed that, but I'll get to that in a minute. So we've got monitors which are for the folks who are singing, in the bhajan area of the pit, and so they get aux 1 and 2. So it's a stereo monitor output, not just a mono channel, because of course we want to pan whenever possible. And I misnamed this, my apologies. This should be left and right, not aux 3 and 4. This is for the stereo output of the house, the venue, and specifically the hall. And we may have we hope we have more than just 2 speakers. And what will be best is if this speaker piggybacks to the next speaker, and the speaker on the right piggybacks to the speaker midway through the hall. So that will be channels left and right, not aux 3 and 4. Apologies. Eric, yeah?
I'm sorry. I was talking to my wife for just a
Oh,
second.
no worries.
I should
Okay.
have been on mute. Sorry.
All good, all good. So that's our house output. And then, of course, we have, well, it's 5 and 6, but maybe it's 3 and 4 later. We have a stream that goes to the live stream. And that channel could be 5 and 6, it could be 3 and 4, or something else. But once we decide on something, we'll label it, make sure it's very clear. And of course, you can always follow the cabling to make sure it goes to the correct device to figure out, what it was likely for. There are pros and cons to having stereo output, a stereo input for live streaming. Mono means that it's just even easier to mix, but that does mean a very separate mix if we're doing mono mixes to live stream. It is important to mix each of these differently. So when we talk about the monitor mix, whether it is the stage monitors or it is in-ear monitors, it's very dependent on who's listening to it. So for the audience, we're trying to make it the best possible experience for them. But for those who are sitting on the ground, it's a very different experience hearing what's coming through the house speakers. So we want to make sure that they hear what they need to hear, primarily the singers, the lead singers. So if the lead singers need to hear the melody more than the percussion, that's what we need to focus on. And likewise for the percussionists, if they need to hear themselves a little bit louder, we'll need to give them a separate mix, not the stage monitor mix. So we will need to give them in-ear monitors, and that will allow them and only them to hear really loud percussions, but not affect the singer's ability to hear the melody or the melodic instruments like the guitars, the harmoniums, and keyboards. Likewise, if any other instrumentalist needs a mix, we need to be able to provide that to them. So that will be the purpose of these aux channels, except for the house mix. That will not be 3 and 4, but like I said, left and right. And lastly, if we choose to utilize the actual venue speakers, and by that I mean those overhead speakers that you may have noticed being used on occasion, it takes a single mono input, but it hasn't always worked well. So that could potentially be a mono mix if we choose to do so. It can also be a stereo mix, but the inputs for that can sometimes be a little wonky. So we need to make sure we find the right place to plug in. I believe there is a spot in section 1 of the hall and a spot in section 2 or 3 of the hall. And then there are also other places around the venue that also have those plug points where you can plug an XLR input into the wall and basically talk to everybody in the building. So like I mentioned, each of these requires someone monitoring that specific mix and changing it as needed. But it is also possible to do this single-handedly, but we need to mix it. So we can kind of do mixes in a relative format. So if we, like if someone who does the house mix can listen to that and realize, okay, for live stream, the percussions need to be a lot softer. Like all the instruments need to be a lot softer, and we just need to hear the vocals more. So for that signal path, they will just need to increase all the vocal channels, so all the vocal mics, just a hair, and drop the percussion, the other instrument mics a bit as well. And so you will need to monitor that specific mix. And to monitor all these, you need to plug into the actual mixer device, not just listen to it on look at the laptop, because we cannot monitor through the laptop itself. We need to plug into the device. And currently that device, the Mackie device, is next to the elevator. Is that still correct? Anyone who was there yesterday might be able to tell us a bit more about that. Martin, were you there yesterday? Eric?
I wasn't there, and unfortunately it's been a little while since I've been there, Bala. I had heard
No
that it was up
worries.
there, but I don't
Okay.
know if Martin, were you there? You're on mute.
Oh, Prashant, you unmuted. Were you there?
Yeah, I was there yesterday.
Okay.
Uh,
Do you happen to notice where the mixer was? Like the black Mackie device?
the audio mixer was
Yeah.
near the stage, near the steps near the on the gent side.
Okay, cool.
If that,
All right. So yeah, so that's where it is for now. And so whenever we want to monitor that particular mix, we are going to have to go and plug into the headphones in the headphone output of the Mackie to be able to hear how it sounds. Now, while you're in the auditorium, oh, sorry, the hall, it might be a little bit difficult to monitor a mix and mix properly. So we might need to think about how we can remove ourselves from that area and have a room dedicated for mixing properly as well. But for mixing in a stage environment, or at least for the house, we definitely do want to mix in the hall. So, Eric, what do you think of that possibility of having a room dedicated for the audio equipment? Not just the equipment, but actually mixing and kind of like a studio environment.
You mean
Is
just
that
to
something we can?
hold the items,
No.
or to do
To
what?
actually do the mixing, have speakers there, have a table and a couple of devices,
I think that might be
laptops
an
or computers.
ambitious.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I
Well,
think in the
at least
short
for this
term,
year, right? Yeah.
exactly. I think it's just as we get more and more, I think it's fair to say that we want to try to up what we're doing and make it
Yeah.
better and better. So there's no question about that, Bala.
Yeah.
But I think in the short term, it might be, just being honest, it might be a little bit of a challenge, you know?
Yeah. No worries. So,
Yeah.
but at some point, it would be lovely to be able to do that, just so that we can give our best.
Yeah.
And make sure everyone who comes hears the best that it can be, at least that we're able to make it for the time being.
Yep.
And that's really the goal, regardless of what hardware we have, regardless of all of that, we want to train ourselves, we want to help each other achieve the best. So anytime folks come up and mention something, don't feel embarrassed or hurt or sad. Always remember, this is just an opportunity to help, and someone's helping. Hopefully, they say it in a nice way. If they don't, feel free to come speak with Eric or myself. We will try to ascertain what exactly happened and make sure that there are no bruised feelings. But yeah, for this particular service activity, just like with any other service activity, we do want to try to remove our ego from the equation as much as possible and just give it our all for Swami. So yeah, this is the signal flow for the hall with the erroneous component written here that I wrote in here about aux 3 and 4. It should be left and right. But are there any questions on this element?
I think the
Cool.
only thing would be
Yeah.
just a setup, in terms of where is the main, right? Which we believe it's up in the corner. Correct?
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So I mean, it is a nice place in that it's physically out of the way. It's just not a great place to mix from, especially if you want to mix for the venue. You kind of want to be where that, whoops, why aren't you doing anything? There we go. Where this camera is in this general vicinity to mix. And so we can do that with the laptop. We just can't listen in on the headphones as well. Like we need to do a bit of both. And so that's a tricky component. But other than that, it is out of the way. So that's great. We just need to figure out. And then if we can get a room at some point down the line, that'll be an additional way to make sure that the live stream mix is done well. When you're in the hall and you're trying to mix a different thing, you might think that it's just right, but you'll be off a hair here and there. So yeah, that'll be the other thing to change. Okay. Now it is 9:40, or close to it. I do apologize. I was hoping to keep this kind of short, but we might need to take just a few more minutes to talk about, unless there were more questions on this. I'd like to switch over to the mixer. All right. So I'll keep this brief, and I won't go into too much detail. Why is that not going away? Okay. This is the software that we use for mixing on the Mackie. You might have seen this face more than the other part of the app, because this controls the basic elements of it. Each channel has its own name under here usually, and sometimes there is a color over here telling you that this is the orange mic or the red mic, or the black mic, or it is the the mic for the male podium speaker or the female podium speaker. So for those of you who don't know, this software needs to be connected to the actual device. So right now I'm running in demo mode, just so that I can show you some of the ins and outs of it. Let's start from the very top. So each of these channel strips over here, channels 1, 2, 3, and I'm on 5 right now, mean that everything on this strip controls most of the stuff that you need for that mic. So with channel 1, let's start at the very top. You've got your gains, your trims, and we will usually have this set well before an event. And you usually will not want to touch this. If someone has touched it and it's way off, say maybe it's really low or really, really hot, and like the moment you tap the mic, you can hear it on the speakers, that's not good. And so that will need to be adjusted. So for the time being, if you do see like it's really hot or really low, just let someone who might have more experience know about it, and hopefully between everyone who's there, we can get the settings dialed in just right. Now, remember I told you guys about those relative mixes? So say, for example, aux 1 and 2 are the the stage monitor mixes, right? And so say this is channel 1 of the singer's mics, and I want channel 1 to be really, really prominent for the vocalist there, but for aux, so because aux 2 is also for the stage, I will want to have it about the same, and these two would actually be linked, so when I move one, the other would move as well. But say aux 5 is for the tabla, and the tabla wants to hear the lead vocalist, but not the other vocals as much. So I would increase it, but maybe not as much, and I would have to keep on checking with the instrumentalist or anyone else who's listening into that particular mix, just to make sure that it's dialed in exactly where they want. This is the way to make sure that from the particular channel side, we have the aux going in at a certain volume. But there's a much more holistic way to look at that particular aux mix. And so to do that, we are going to come down here to where it says mix, click on main, click on 5 for aux 5, assuming this is the mix for the tabla, for example. Say if tabla is channel 4, I'm going to increase that a bit more, and all the other vocals are going to be at different points, but because I will have changed the relative mix, they will kind of move around as I adjust the main mix. So I would not need to keep coming back and change, or I would not need to have someone constantly monitoring aux 5. I can continue to make changes from song to song and feel confident that aux 5 mix is going to continue to remain the same until that individual or individuals hail me and say, hey, this mix needs to change a little bit. Maybe the keyboards are really loud. Please dial them down. And so I can go in and change say if channel 10 was the keyboards and it was super hot for one song and needs to be reduced for another song because maybe they were using some nice soft pads, but they need to be a bit more present, I would have raised it up. And now I need to bring it down because it's a different sound. I'll need to make sure I do that pretty quickly, or it might damage someone's ears because in-ear mixes or in-ear monitors will, I mean, the earbuds are directly in their ears. And so we just want to make sure we don't damage their hearing, but they of course will have a body pack, and so they would be able to reduce it. Now we do not have the hardware at this point. This is just the concepts, just discussing some concepts for what we would be doing in the future. Going back to the main mix real quick. So we just talked about gains and trims. The second little piece over here is the EQ. And so a couple of things. I guess the super basic thing, without diving too deep into this and taking up everyone's time, you can read up on EQ, you can watch a lot of YouTube videos, but you're going to learn a lot of things by watching and listening, but you are also going to learn a lot by playing with it yourself. And so the super basic thing, and I do like to keep my EQ in modern rather than vintage because it's just dials versus the actual graph. Now, if you want to see how that EQ is showing the actual frequencies playing in real time, click on RTA. And of course, nothing is going into any input in channel 1 right now, so you won't see anything. But during a live session, you would see like the graph just jumping around dynamically in real time, and you would be able to tell, like, okay, the low frequencies of the tabla are, yes, Karthik.
So we have the aux, which is the different inputs coming into this, correct? That's aux.
No. So the aux is actually, oh yes, the aux mix is the different inputs. That's correct. The aux output is, and this is the reason we're having the aux mix, is it is going to a particular signal. So going back to here, aux 1 and 2 could go to stereo.
But my
stage,
question is, now, if you go back to the screen,
yeah,
what is channel versus aux in this context?
Okay, so remember when we were not in aux 5, but rather in main stage, right? Yeah. And we are having all these channels over here, all those mics. It's the same exact thing, but aux 5, and I just picked 5 arbitrarily. It's not always going to be the same case, but in aux 5, maybe that's going to the stage mix, or it's going to an in-ear monitor or the live stream. This is all the same channels that you saw in the main mix, all those same mics, but I am mixing it differently for that particular signal path. So for the live stream, the instruments are going to be too loud, and you want to, it's not going to be a studio environment when you're, or like a CD environment when you're listening to a live stream. And so you're going to have to change the mix accordingly based on who's listening to it. So even for the overhead speakers, it's going to be a lot different from hearing those stage mixes or listening to the regular venue mix on those on these house speakers.
Basically, let's say, for example, aux 1 is a stage stereo. So if that is loud, then we go into aux 1 and then adjust the inputs.
Yes, exactly. And then if everything is fine, like the mix is fine, it's just really loud, I can go into that master volume over here, this master fader, and I can reduce it.
Got it.
So everything can be adjusted through the software without going to the physical speaker itself. So having to go up on stage or move around where people might be hopefully in bliss and kind of interrupting their zen time because we need to fiddle with the dials. So ideally all the dialing is done beforehand for the physical speakers, and then everything else can be done via the software.
Got it. So for example, let's say if somebody reports that hey, the online the live stream is too loud. Then we go to the
Too loud?
going
Yeah.
the live stream
Mhm.
is too loud,
Yeah.
or it's, let's say it's whatever it is, right? It needs
Sure.
adjustment. So any aux that going into live stream, you need to go there and then reduce
Correct.
the master.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Now sometimes, okay, so just like with if you're working with a client, sometimes the client says something, but they don't know how to say it properly, and at least how to say it properly for it to be a constructive comment to you. And so they may say, hey, things are too loud, but what they really mean is the tabla, the high part of the tabla is really sharp. Or maybe the singer has too much bass and the speaker is vibrating a lot. And so they may not know how to specifically say that particular comment to us, and all we get is loud. So rather than just dialing this down, we are going to have to go in and listen on headphones or ideally in a different environment. So this is why it goes back to making sure we have a different space to mix in for anything that's not in the hall. So if we're going to the live stream, if we're going to that through that overhead speakers to the folks in the dining area, we do have to be conscientious of the fact that they may not be able to exactly say what the issue is, and so just dialing it down may not truly fix it. Or
Can we, let's say,
yeah,
if we are having a headphones, can we
mhm.
switch to that aux channel and then hear
Yes.
firsthand how it's going to be?
Yes. So the moment you click the solo button here, the headphone channel is going to activate exactly what you clicked on. So if I clicked on the solo on the master fader for aux 4, I'm going to hear the master mix of aux 4. But just because I have headphones on doesn't mean that the rest of the auditorium or the hall doesn't bleed into my ears. So I would ideally need to be in an environment that's removed from there, and then I would be able to hear it better. But yes, to get a quick feel of it, and during this time where we don't have all the things exactly how we want it to be, that would be the only solution.
Can we have,
The
the headphones are wired, or if
The headphones are wired, yes, and we would have to go to the actual spot right here where the mixing device is, the Mackie device. At some point, if it gets moved, we'd have to go to that spot to plug in. One thing, two things to mention. So one, we could have a line out from that headphones to some other spot, and then we could have another headphone amp, maybe plug in most headphone amps, if you're connecting from one point to another and as an extender, have usually 4 different outputs, and so you can plug in 4 people can plug into the same headphone amp and use it. But because it's just mirroring that one channel, over here, like when I click on solo, it is only going to hear that specific mix, and so all 4 channels are going to hear that one mix. If the next person wants to mix, they're going to have to wait until I unsolo this and they can solo the next mix or the next channel that they
That's
need
only
to.
on the headphone jack, right? Not the entire audience.
Correct. The audience does not hear anytime you do a solo.
Okay, it's
But
only
one really, really important thing, and this is a flaw with the device right now. I don't know when they're going to fix it. The moment you solo something, like if you haven't soloed anything, you're just going to hear the regular mix from the master. So regardless of where I am, if I haven't soloed anything, I'm just going to hear the master mix, the main mix. But the moment I go from the main mix to soloing this particular channel, the glitch is that the volume becomes really high suddenly when I'm trying to listen to one specific channel.
on the headphones or to the
on the head on the headphones.
Headphones, okay.
This only affects the headphones, so it's a small glitch, but it's very irritating because you kind of go to 80-90% of the headphone volume when you're just listening to the main mix, and then the moment you solo it, you've kind of got to dial it down really fast to like 20-30%. So it's a big jump. So just keep that in mind. Save
But
your
the same
ears.
thing if you do it on the main, for example, like the main that doesn't. So let's say if you go to an aux,
Yeah.
and then let's say go to aux 5, then you do a solo here. This glitch is not here.
No, the glitch is here. And anytime I solo, it just jumps
Oh,
up,
okay.
unfortunately.
Not just
I-
but also the main.
Yeah. But you will also have noticed that main. So anytime everything's unsoloed, that's when I'm hearing main. So I can't solo main because obviously that's the default function. So yeah, that'll be the thing. The other really quick way to change the volumes is to click on aux over here. And so instead of just regular,
Understood.
you
These
can
are all
also
the respective aux's main button.
exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So master level of aux 1 will be this, that, and then if I'm not using any particular channels, of course, it's always safest to keep it down. And we will do another session on OBS at some point, or if you'd like to actually, please go ahead and just check out YouTube and just see a couple of things on a few different things. Anything you're interested in, of course, but also on folks who are using MasterFader, which is the name of the software for the Mackie devices. You can, I will send you the link to the software, so you are going to be able to download it on your laptops, phones, tablets, anything, and you can just play around with it. This will give you an opportunity just to play with it without actually being at SPN. And once you kind of get your hands in it, it's pretty fun. Some of it is
virtually connect to any devices and then test it out, or just
no, unfortunately not. If you have a Mackie device that is wireless, yes, you can. If you are at SPN, you can connect to that device. But preferably, if you're doing that, please let the people who are mixing know, because they may be doing something and then they suddenly see the faders jumping around. They're going to get very scared and confused and start saying siren. So let them know.
Mackie devices, does it connect to so it's only connected to one laptop at this point, right? It's not connected to multiple devices.
The Mackie device at SPN, I think, is connected to 2 devices, both laptops. I might be mistaken. Maybe it's 1 laptop again.
Okay. But it cannot
yeah.
be controlled from 2 different lab machines, right?
Yes, it can. Yes, it can. It can be controlled from multiple machines at one time.
Okay, got it.
So this makes it really great when you have someone focused on the live stream mix and another person focused on the venue mix and a third person focused on the mix for the stage, or the pit rather, for the singers and instrumentalists who are playing budgeons. And you have another stream focused on, another operator focused on the mix for the folks in the dining area. All of them can control that one Mackie device from 4, 5, 6 different
Each
laptops and
taking ownership
tablets
of separate aux.
of that particular aux. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, understood. Perfect.
Yeah. Yes, Money.
One quick question, Bala. Did we
Sure.
use different auxes last time during the Akan Bhajan, or did we just use main?
Unfortunately, I think we just used main. I wanted to do more, but I was also late getting there, and this is why it is so important to have all of you helping out so that we're not reliant on just one individual who is time challenged. Me. My wife has problems with this too, but I'm working on it, I promise. But meanwhile, all of you helping out will help us make sure that we're there in time. We help with setup whenever possible. And of course, that does not mean that every one of you have to be there. If you have other obligations, more than understandable. But for those of us that are able to make it, do help pitch in, please. That would be very, very fantastic. And yes, then we would be able to have all the aux channels working, or the ones that we need at least, working simultaneously. We were a bit short on time, and therefore we didn't run all the signal chains. Yeah, I don't think we had even, we wanted to make things simple the last time around, like super simple. And so we didn't even have a separate stream for the folks who were getting the stage mix. It was the exact same mirror image of the house mix. which was also the same as the live stream mix, which we stopped after a while because there were just too many issues. So with all of everyone on this call and everyone who will listen to this recording at some point between now and November 9th, hopefully we will be able to get a couple of things sorted out, and folks dedicated to monitoring certain mixes at certain times, and of course the times when we aren't able to, that's that. The other thing, and this is the fallback that we did, sorry, Mani, did you have any other questions about the auxes?
No, that's
Okay, all right. 1 second, Karthik. The other thing that we did with last time for Akhanda Bhajans was we also had recorded everything, all the different channels as separate tracks, and we've done this a couple of other times since as well. This allowed us to do a mix after the fact. So Bhajans were over, regardless of how a mix came out during that moment, that snapshot moment during, say, Camarillo Center's slot, or San Diego group, Hollywood Center, Torrance Center, Glendale, Arcadia, all these different centers, Thousand Oaks. Regardless of how the mix turned out at that point, what we were able to do is after the event, go in, mix it how we wanted, and then made a video of it and upload it onto YouTube. So if you go listen to the YouTube mix right now, it is not representative of what you might have heard if you were at SPN on that day at that time. So that is the saving grace, but also a bit more of a time suck going in and mixing after the fact. So if we're able to get mixes down really well during the live stream, that can be the official video that goes out, and we don't have to spend a bit of time after the fact because there's always new projects that need more time and attention. Karthik, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I didn't have a question. I was just giving a thumbs up.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Prashant.
Yeah, so one of the devotees mentioned this to me during one of the weekly bhajan sessions, that we should have the audio table somewhere in the center of the hall so that we can provide a better mix.
That
But
is
then at
correct.
that point, I didn't understand anything. I said, okay, I'll inform it to the
Gotcha.
people. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's very true. Having it in the middle does help. But it's a balance, right? Everything's a balance. Having it in the middle is theoretically the best thing, but practicality doesn't work right now. At some point in the future, maybe we have solutions that will work. I mean, even right now, we can think of a couple, but is it something that we can do right away? The answer may not be the case. Eric, you're unmuted. Did you want to add anything?
No, I'm just also thinking about like next week and
Yeah.
Akanda Bhajans and birthday and like a little bit of an action plan for how we might, start to give the best we can for not only audio but streaming, and how that might work and how that might be separated out, all that stuff.
Yeah. Anything you want to start with first that we can tackle, and then we can just progress down the
Well, do
line?
we want to do something for next week, in which we come and we set up and we provide, what we can given the things that we have at the moment?
Sure.
Is that
So,
what you want to do that?
personally, I am not going to be able to attend next weekend. But
Okay.
of those of us who are on this call and who will be able to join next weekend, I'm sure we can finagle certain things together. We can come up with an action plan. So even if someone may not know the exact step to take, we can still make sure that it is laid out and clear, and everyone can follow that plan. Of course, all plans immediately fail the moment they come into reality. So we'll need to also troubleshoot certain things real time. But I'm sure we'll be able to rise to the challenge. So initially for next weekend, were you thinking more of the audio or the video side of things that you want to try to?
Well, I mean, are we at a point where we might be able to do audio and visual for streaming?
Depends on how many people
And
we have for next weekend.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there are two elements to streaming, right? For next weekend, there's the live stream for the nation, right? SSIO USA is going to be calling in on everyone to share at a specific time slot. There's also the live stream of the event at SPN being broadcasted over YouTube or Zoom for now if we kind of want to test things out. But I think we can still do it on YouTube, and that way we also have the get to fix any issues or that may crop up from OBS side of things, because that's the other element, is making sure while it is pretty good, we want to make sure that people are also trained in that so that they can troubleshoot real time. So for the first part, super easy. Just have a phone or a tablet at the specific location. So if it's the tree planting, just having someone with a phone there pointed at the actual thing, making sure they're at good angles. If we want to have 2 or 3 people chiming in and showing one angle of a tree being planted and another angle of a tree being planted, maybe mid shots, close-up shots, wide shots, that would be cool. Having 2 or 3 phones doing that would be great. Of course, we want to make sure the signal is good before we attempt to do more challenging things on multiple
Need to have
devices.
someone that will manage all this, Bala, and
Yeah, so
take the lead on it, or
yes, we definitely do. So after this call, what I think we can do is just drop a note in the chat asking folks just a yes and no question, who's going to be there on the 19th and can help out. At particular times, of course, the instrumentalists on the team will not be able to join. At other times, everyone will be able to pitch in. I think during the service times, is there anything else happening simultaneously in the hall?
There's a sandwich project. There's a medical camp project there for the devotees. There's tree planting project. Well, there has been some distribution of jackets, but that's kind of a different thing that's not happening at that moment.
Right.
But those are the things that, when I think about it in terms of, we need somebody to say, for everybody on the call, we need somebody to say, I'll be happy to take on what's needed to make sure this gets organized a little bit in terms of potentially streaming, potential audio. And if we're not quite ready for that, I just thought this might be a good spot for all of us to take a moment to try to practice, if you will, for Akhanda Bhajans and the birthday, which is really what we want to try to have the best solution for. So I don't know if anybody has any thoughts around this,
Okay. Yep, Martin.
Well, I was just going to say, I agree with Eric. If we should try to make as much possible use of the coming weeks to start practicing this, because it's still I think somewhat overwhelming. We need to get hands-on experience on this stuff.
Sure.
And hopefully we have enough time in the weeks to come to for us to get trained to help out with it. But yeah, I mean, I'll be there this coming Saturday so I can try to help out wherever I can. But I agree that we should definitely try to just get started on it and start practicing in the weeks before all the major events.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I think it just needs Bala, right? It just needs somebody to say, we could even split it up into 2 things. Like if we had someone that says, okay, if we're going to need maybe some camera video of the trees that we're going to stream, or we take that video and we can share it. And then I think that's a separate thing compared to audio for the main hall for bhajans and mixing, and then video for the main hall for streaming. And that could be maybe the same person, because once the video started, I think what we'll probably have this coming week is a static video at the moment, right in the center, looking back at the stage. We do have the ability for a camera person to operate that camera in the short term. But then we need somebody to make sure that we're going, that, the link we provide, if we do provide one, is accurate. We start at a certain time. Everything is set up probably around, 10:30 at the latest. We do have bhajans. We have actually prayers beginning at 10, budgeons at 11, program at 12. So, if we could get started with setup at around, 9 or 9:30, then we could ensure that the streaming and the audio would be sort of ready, So that's what I think of as just where do we need to be this weekend? Where do we need to be? We can even practice the weekend after. Doesn't matter, right? We can stream it. We just don't have to. We don't have to, broadcast it. We can have our own link that we just go to and check, and practice with that as far as streaming goes. But
Yeah.
the idea is that the devotees can see this. We have a lot of older people, right, in our region, and providing the ability for us to stream this and then have it in a professional manner would be really amazing, So that's where my mind goes with it, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
does that
So
make sense?
it does. And
Okay.
your point about, streaming at another time is a good one. And I would like to add to that, nothing needs to be happening during the time that we practice. It's of course useful, but it ends up meaning that we have to be very subtle about when we're needing to do certain changes. So it might be good to do a dry run before anyone's even there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But that obviously cannot happen right before a program. So we need to have almost a couple of hours where we can just dedicate to, okay, we're going to be here for this from this time to this time, and some people might be needing to do other things during that time and may need to step away earlier, start later, but maybe we have 4 hours set aside, and it actually could take even longer than that, but I just want to make sure that I don't scare anyone off. 2 to 4 hours where we're just troubleshooting, doing things, and just seeing how certain things work. Of course, for the audio side of things, it is nicer when we have actual budgeons happening. But for the video side of things, not too much needs to be happening. We can just have a cardboard cutout of a person and just practice focusing on that spot, making sure the white balance is right, making sure that we practice switching from from shot 2 to shot 3, and then adding in the presenter slide and all that stuff. So there are certainly things that we can do without things happening, without an event happening, but there are going to be some elements where we just need a budgeon happening, and so we can maybe do it during a budgeon practice, whether it is the regional budgeon practice or anyone else that comes there to practice. We can just take that opportunity also to practice this. So is it possible for us to get a schedule of Cypher Millennium on a certain day and then just book some time with someone?
Yeah,
I think is that
we
an
could
official thing that we
do.
can process?
Yeah, I think we can do almost anything we want,
Cool.
and not have any trouble with that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
We can, it's up to us. We're ready, I guess is the way I would put it. It just requires us as a team saying, okay, I'll be there. I'll meet you at 9:30. We'll make sure that, probably needs a leader, someone that
Sure.
will make sure that everything is in good shape. The mics are good. The levels are good. The camera's working. We've tested it. It's all set. The audio looks good. And then it might be where, somebody says, you know what, I'll be happy to be the camera person. And then they can maybe not man that camera in the middle all of the time, because obviously there might be devotees in back of them. But like the ability to every once in a while go in, and rather than having a static wide shot of the altar, maybe for the speaker, that one of us goes over there and, takes the tripod and, maneuvers the camera in such a way that now we're looking at the speaker only, right?
Yeah.
And, exactly, Bala, exactly. And, so it just requires, we kind of need a leader that will take it on, like, this is what I'm going to do. This is my sadhana.
Yeah.
I'm going to help with this. Well, that's because it really is that,
Yeah.
it requires somebody to take it on and make it their own. And so lots of good ideas.
Yeah.
But that's
so
where we're at.
yeah. Yeah, let's try this rather than putting everyone on the spot right now and
Sure, of
making
course.
someone
Of
feel
course
like they
not.
must say yes.
I know, I know.
Let's pose this to the logic group and also give them an opportunity to try out and see what it entails before they
Sure.
say, yes, I'll take this on. This will be my
Absolutely.
responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah.
That way they also get an idea for, is this something that I'm capable of handling, or if
Yeah,
this is
exactly. Yeah.
something that is super easy, I can take on something even harder. Or I just don't have the time to take care of this at this time. Maybe I have other commitments in the interim. Okay, cool. So we have a couple of questions that we can ask on the group chat. First of all, is the 19th what people can help with and during what times? Second thing is a good time to do an in-person, hands-on demo and dry run. And this might need to be on two separate days. This might be able to, I mean, if we might be able to couple all of this into one thing, but it does mean that it might be a little longer. I don't want to put anyone on the spot and ask them about that now, but we'll definitely pose that later on the chat. Please, if you're not able to, feel free to say no. We're not going to
I'm
think
not trying
badly
to,
of the team. Yeah.
I'm not trying to, but I'm pointing out that that's what I think we need
Yeah.
is that. So, please forgive me. I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot, but at the same time, that would be the most helpful,
Yeah, definitely. Very ideal outcome. Cool. Were there any other questions? Maybe not necessarily about the things that we just discussed, or unless someone has anything to say, but also were there any questions on the audio side of things, which was the last section that we covered? I will share the links to those. And of course, YouTube, I'll share a couple of keywords that you can also YouTube and look up, and then also hear some samples. Of course, people have done a very thorough, like lots of thorough videos out there with samples that you can check out. So please do take advantage of those, of their kindness and time. But any questions from anyone on the call?
No questions from my side.
Cool. Martin?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
Sarah?
Mani? Sarah?
I'm good, Bala. Thank you.
Okay.
All good,
Prashant?
brother. Thank you.
Cool. Eric, any questions?
No, thank you very much, Bala.
Cool. My pleasure. Thank you, everyone. Eric, would you close us out?
I'd be happy to. Yeah.
Thank you.
What would
Yes.
be our next steps then, Bala? Just
So-
we'll put it out to the group.
Yeah. So next steps would be the two poll questions on the group chat, asking everyone about the 19th, and then a date that we can do a in-person demo, and then if it's a different date, a date that we can do hands-on dry run, in-person dry run rather. Sorry. Of course, for the people who may not be able to make it out there, if there's one or two people, they can be those folks who will check in with us and let us know, hey, this looks weird, or it's and this is a real issue. The image is mirrored. So instead of Swami's chair on is that the right? Yeah, the right side of the stage, maybe it shows up on the left side, and that's a setting that's easily tweakable, but we just need to make sure we catch it during the dry run rather than during the actual event. So I think those can be the next two steps, and then or three steps, and then we can take from there. How does it sound, Eric?
Okay, perfect.
Cool.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you again, everyone, for the late meeting. It is late, so
Yeah,
we'll
apologies.
close. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Thanks again. I'll close with a prayer. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.